Hey everyone, welcome back for another video. This is Mike Howerton with the Area 51 team, and we're going to continue our how-to and help, our how-to series, slash driver development series here with our iRacing videos. And today's video and the topic is going to be how to properly set your force feedback in iRacing. And I know that when I started out there a little over a year and a half ago, we're creeping up on 2 years, a lot of the settings in the options menu were like, it was kind of overwhelming, and I wasn't quite sure, what to set and how to set it. When I first started setting my force feedback, I was just guessing. I was just in there, guessing what what it might be, and I go out and turn a few laps and see what it felt like. But it was pretty wild guessing, and definitely wasn't correct. And I think my driving suffered a bit from it. So what I want to do is get all of you guys and gals that are new to iRacing. I want to get you off to the right start and get your wheels set up properly with force feedback so it feels right when you're racing, and you can catch slides and you can really feel what's going on with your car on the track. So today, as we look at this, we're going to look at some settings in iRacing, and then we're also going to have to do a little bit of research online. And I've done a little bit of that for you. I'm going to put a link down in the description below of the of a cheat sheet website I found. This, like, I think it was titled like the ultimate guide to wheel comparison or something of that nature, and it has pretty much all the information we're going to need on that one website. Otherwise, you have to go into each manufacturer's site for each wheel that's out there, and look up each of these values individually. That's what I did when I did it for myself, because all I had to look up was the wheel that I had. But for this video, I'm gonna be looking up several of them for you guys, so that was kind of an easy way to do it. So as we get started, though, remember to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you like this video and like our content. We'd appreciate you subscribing, getting notified whenever new content is put up, so that it can help you in your iRacing and also help us with gaining subscribers. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. The first place we're going to go is in the iRacing options area. So it's up here in the top right hand corner. We're going to click options. And as you're in the options, we are going to look here in this force feedback area. It's on the left hand side here under the drive tab. There's several tabs across the bottom. The one that defaults opens up to, and the very first one is drive. That's where you can calibrate your wheel and your pedals and your shifters and like all that stuff, but it also has our force feedback. You can set your field of view here. There's a lot of things on this page, and we are going to focus today solely on this force feedback section. Everything we need as far as settings is right here in this middle left hand side. And we're going to go, and the first thing you want to do is you want to have enable force feedback checked. If you're using iRacing stock force feedback, which most people do, there are some other options. We might get into those later, but if you're using the force feedback that's built into iRacing, you got to have that box checked. So we're going to check that box. The next box that we're going to talk about is this use linear mode. This is kind of an important box depending on what wheel you have. So I checked this box, use linear mode, because I have a pretty powerful wheelbase. I have a Fanatic DD1, and it has a pretty high torque value associated with it. And if you read down here at the bottom of the screen, it has a little note down there. It always puts notes. So if you're not sure what something does in iRacing, you just hover over it and you read the note at the bottom in the options area. It says, and I'm going to read the note here. It says, if not checked, we will boost the smaller forces and decrease the larger forces. This may help weaker wheels feel more lively. Stronger wheels, especially direct drive wheels, will likely feel better with this checked. So for my personal use, I check it because I have a direct drive wheel. It's pretty strong. But if you have a weaker wheel, especially an entry-level wheel, and even a little tiny bit above entry level. So what I would consider entry level is like a Thrustmaster T150, which is the PlayStation version, or a Thrustmaster TMX. That's the Xbox version. It's basically the same wheelbase. Or the Logitech G series. The G923 is the brand new one. And also the previous generation was the G29, the G920. Respectively, for PlayStation versus Xbox. So on those smaller entry level wheels, you might want to uncheck that box so that you can get all the sensations of the wheel in that smaller force feedback power of the motor. And that's really, there's a term I'm going to throw out. I'll define several terms in this video. And really what we're describing here is the dynamic range of your wheelbase. And dynamic range is basically the the difference in value of the smallest torque value your wheel can handle, so let's say 0, versus the largest or peak torque value that your wheel can handle. And I'll just use my wheel as an example. I have the Fanatic DD1, as I mentioned before, and it will do from 0 to a 20 Newton meter torque value. Peak torque, and it'll do a sustained torque value of 15 Newton meters. A lot of wheels differentiate, especially when we get into the direct drives, between sustained torque and peak torque, and it's basically exactly what it says. Sustained torque value of 15 Newton meters means my wheel can put out 15 Newton meters on an ongoing basis, versus the peak torque, which means that, hey, for a short period of time when something happens and it needs that extra power, it can throw out 20 Newton meters for a short amount of time as a peak torque value. And so that's my dynamic range. Well, the problem is some of the cheaper wheels like the Logitech series have about a 2 Newton meter maximum torque ability, so the dynamic range is very small. So by unchecking this box and unchecking linear mode, it's going to decrease the maximum values, increase the smaller forces in order to fit them all within that 2 Newton meter range. So it's really going to help you out by unchecking if you have one of the entry level wheels. Even when you get up into like I would say slightly above entry level wheels, like the Thrustmaster T300, the T500 came before the T300, but the T500, T300, the TX, which is the Xbox version of the T300, when you get up into those like a little bit above entry level wheels, you still might want to have this unchecked. It's not going to be until you get into like 6, 8, 10, 12 Newton meters that you might want to think about checking this box. And then definitely if you have a strong direct drive wheel, you want to have that box checked. Otherwise, leave it unchecked. The next box here is reduce force when parked. I usually keep this checked so when you're sitting in your car parked before you start moving, your wheel's not super hard to turn. And actually, sometimes when you have that unchecked, your wheel will actually shake back and forth or like bounce around while you're sitting in the car. So I usually leave that checked, just reduces the force feedback while you're sitting parked, not moving. The next value here is strength. That's just the overall strength that it's going to put out. And the bottom control or the bottom description down there reads, controls how heavy a force feedback wheel feels in your hand. Higher values bring out more detail, but may make it more difficult to be smooth. Keep in mind that going too high can cause a loss of detail by hitting the maximum output. Auto setting helps avoid this by giving the optimal maximum setting. So let's talk here just for a second about this idea of optimum maximum force, and so that you don't get in this idea where it says there in like the third sentence, keep in mind that going too high can cause a loss of detail by hitting the maximum output. So what you're wanting to avoid is something, we're going to have another term that we need to kind of define. And that is, we're going to avoid something called clipping. And that is when the output of the sim, in this case iRacing, is too high for your wheel's motor to handle it, and it's wanting your wheel's motor to do more than it can do. And when that happens, we call that clipping, and that's going to completely eliminate all detail and the force feedback in your wheel, and it's going to almost feel like your wheel's kind of really dampened and dead kind of feeling and very heavy, and it really takes the detail out. So that's something we really want to avoid. It even tells us here in this description down below. And we're going to kind of look at that on the track and how to avoid that. The best way to avoid it is we're going to show you here in just a second when we go out into the car onto the track. There's a trick in iRacing, not really a trick, but a built-in feature in iRacing to help you avoid this. And but that's the strength slider here. If you already know what strength you're wanting to use because you've raced this car on this track or something like that, you already know which one, you can set it here. And then the last setting we're going to talk about is something we've already defined and talked about, and that is the maximum torque, which is Newton meters. My particular wheel, I've already told you, does 15 Newton meters sustained, 20 peak, and so in the 20 is a little too strong for me in my taste. It's really strong. So what I've done is I've went into the Fanatic driver software and set my force feedback to 60%. And then 60% of 20 is 12. That's why I have my Newton meters set here at 12. And so what you need to do is you need to go and you need to find how much torque your particular wheel has. And I'm going to show you that website I mentioned earlier, where it has pretty much all the major wheel brands and model numbers of each wheel listed with their torque value. Let's go check out that website right now. Okay, here's the website I was referring to. If you look along the top of here, it's got the manufacturer model number. There's a Logitech G29, Logitech G920, and the 923. And then you got some of the Thrustmaster offerings, entry-level offerings. And here's the Thrustmaster T150 RS and the Thrustmaster TMX. And those are equivalent to the G series pretty much as far as their force feedback power. If we get down here to force feedback strength, right here towards the bottom, right above the Fanatic advertisement, you see 2.1 Newton meters for the G29, 2.2 for the G920, 2.2 for the 923, and then for the T150 from Thrustmaster and the TMX from Thrustmaster, you got 2 Newton meters. You can keep scrolling over. And as you do, you'll see some of the wheels get stronger here. You'll see the Thrustmaster T300 at 3.9 Newton meters, the TX, which is the Xbox version, at 3.9 as well. Then you got the older Thrustmaster T500 at 4.4 Newton meters. The Thrustmaster TSPC Racer and TGT and the TSXW all at 6. Well, the TSXW is actually at 6.4, but they're already on the 6 range there from Thrustmaster. Then you're going to get into Fanatic. You're going to see the entry-level Fanatic CSL Elite having 6 Newton meters of torque power, the Club Sport V2.5, 8 Newton meters. Then we get into the Podium series, which is the Fanatic DD1 and DD2. You're going to see that with 20 Newton meters for the DD1, 25 for the DD2. Then you have the Podium series racing wheel with the F1 wheel on it, and that's basically a DD1 with PlayStation compatibility built into it. Then you've got your AccuForce, which is made by Sim Experience, is your AccuForce Pro V2, 13 Newton meters of force there. SimiCube 2 Sport 17, and then the SimiCube Pro 25 Newton meters, and there's a few more. And anyway, so just look up your wheel here on this chart, and find out which one you have, and just remember that Newton meter value. And we're going to go back into iRacing and plug that in. Okay, now that we're back here in iRacing, right here, wheel force. This is where you plug in the value you just found for your wheel. You can slide it all the way down to 1. Like I said, a lot of the G series wheels, like the G920 or 920 and 923, or the brand new ones, are at 2.2 Newton meters. There's no 2.1. It goes from 2.2 to 2. So if you had the G29, it's 2.1 Newton meters. So to avoid any kind of clipping, you would want to go down just to simply 2.0. But if you have the G920 or the 923, you could actually do 2.2 Newton meters. And then, once you get into also for the Thrustmaster, entry-level Thrustmaster wheels, they're at 2.0 Newton meters. And then, moving up the scale, for the Thrustmaster T300 and TX, you could do 4, it's 3.9. You could do 4, or you also could do 3.8. If you really want to avoid clipping, you might want to set it at 3.8 Newton meters. There's not going to be much difference. And then you go up to like the entry level Thrustmaster CSL Elite, along with some of the higher level, not Thrustmaster, but the entry level Fanatic CSL Elite is at 6 Newton meters. And also some of those higher end Thrustmasters are at 6.0 Newton meters. Then if you got your going up to your Club Sport V2.5 wheelbase from Fanatic, 8 Newton meters. And then you're going from there, you're going to go up in your direct drive ranges, clear up in here. And the maximum setting is 40 Newton meters. I'm not sure if I know any wheel that does 40 Newton meters. But we're going to go back down to 12, which is where I have mine set. And then we'll just slide this somewhere here, you know, like say, let's just call it 12, maybe 12 and a half on the strength, just to get us out on the track. We'll just go to 12 even. That's just going to get us out on the track so we can do the thing I'm going to show you here to make sure that strength gets set to the proper value to avoid clipping. So let's go ahead and jump into the cockpit of my car. All right, now that we're in the car, we're going to head over to the black boxes. And you can see that I'm setting on the black box here that says graphic adjustments. Now, it's odd that they put force feedback strength in graphic adjustments, but that's where it's at. And so that's the last black box before you get to the radio. So if you got no black boxes up and you go next black box, next, all the way over, next, you go graphics adjustments and then radio, and then you're done. If you got the black boxes mapped to like a funky switch on the Fanatic wheel, or like the D-pad on your Logitech G Series wheels, or Thrustmasters usually have a D-pad. If you got that set up mapped to your black boxes, you can actually go back to the left and hit previous black box twice, and that should take you to the graphics adjustment when you're in the car. If you look right down at the bottom, it says FFB strength. That's force feedback strength. And as you can see, it's set to 12, and that's exactly what we set it to in the options menu before we came out on the track. And so we're going to turn a few laps now, and this works whether you're doing it works anywhere in iRacing, whether you're doing oval, road, dirt road, it doesn't matter. It works the same way. We're gonna go out and put some time on the track. We're in oval, usually it takes 2-3 laps. On a road course, it might take 1 lap or less, but we're going to go drive the track normally just for a little bit of time here, maybe a couple laps, and it's going to then calculate what the correct force feedback strength value should be, to the point to where you'll get the maximum output possible without clipping, without going over. And so let's go ahead and do that. We'll go out here on the track and turn a few laps. And you can actually increase and decrease the value manually here by the incremental, your incremental up and de-incremental down. I'm going to go up to about 14. That way it feels a little stronger. It's pretty weak at 12. So let's just turn a few laps here. All right, now you'll see the auto button popped up there right side of your feedback strength value. Well, I'm going to get a little more data in there before I click it. I'm going to do just a little bit more. Alright, so we've probably got enough data. I want to grab my mouse, alright, and I'm going to go down and just click that auto button. And there we go, it's set it at 17 is the force feedback strength. Based on the amount of Newton meters that my wheel's doing, we got it set at 12. It says that its force feedback strength for my racing value of 17 will get me the maximum force feedback I can get without clipping, without going over what my wheel can do. And so, if you have a different wheel than I do, and you're on the same car and the same track, this is the Xfinity car at Chicagoland. And so if you were on the same track and same car as me right now, and you had, say, a Logitech G series wheel, like the brand new G923, and your maximum Newton meters is 2.2, and you went out and ran a few laps, and you hit the auto button, your value would probably be different than 17.
31.833.
It's just the way it is. It's just based on your Newton meters. It tells it how much force it can give your wheel without clipping. So every single wheelbase, every model of wheelbase, based on its Newton meters, will have a different force feedback strength for each car and each track. And so for my particular combination, or my particular Newton meters of strength, it says automatically that 17 is the value I need. And I'm going to turn a few more laps.
31.795.
And if for some reason it recalculates it and thinks that a different value needs to be there, that auto button will pop back up again. And so if once you set it once, maybe turn 4 or 5 more laps and make sure the auto button doesn't pop back up again, and then you're going to have your pretty much the perfect value for force feedback strength for your wheelbase. We're coming to the pits this next lap. I've done several laps after I hit the auto button, and it has not popped back up again. I just also want to mention that, you know, if you run it and you feel like the force feedback is too strong, you can always manually reduce it. Like I'm at 17 now and I say, oh, that's too strong. I can always take it down to 17. The auto button pops back up because the iRacing wants to take it back up to 17 for you automatically, but you don't have to. You can manually take it down a little bit if it's the force feedback is too strong. But if you have one of the entry-level wheels, like we were talking about, that has a lot weaker motor in it, then the auto is going to be fine. You just want to set it at the auto, which is the maximum force feedback you're going to get without clipping on your wheel. So there we go, guys. That's how you get the proper specific force feedback for your particular wheel rim in iRacing. So I hope that you guys learned something from this video. And I also hope that, you know, your racing gets better. Maybe your lap times improve. If maybe you were clipping before and losing a lot of that force feedback detail, and it was causing you to miss slides and not be able to catch them and that kind of stuff. And so hopefully this will improve your racing, improve your lap times, and just ensure that you're getting the proper force feedback for your wheel when you're racing in iRacing. Again, this is Mike Howerton with the Area 51 team. This is another one of our series of how-to and driver development videos. If you like the content, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that you'll be notified of our future content. Appreciate you being with us, and we'll see you in the next video.